I have an old video on market anarchy and objectivism or something, and I just keep always get comments, but it's just always the same thing for all these decades of discussing this with these people about how, well, monopoly can't happen naturally, it's only the government, blah, blah. It's very simple. You're supposedly logical, right? You support property right. So we have the big issue of who enforces property right that it's hopeless to expect you to deal with that. But you believe in property rights. So it's obviously possible to buy all the water. You make no distinction between a commodity directly necessary for survival, like water, or, cans of Coca-Cola. It's all the same to you. You have to model everything as an object that could be property. Even a human being, which, if you don't believe in slavery, can't be property. You have to model it as a property and come up with some kludge like, oh, well, other people can't own you, though, but you're your own property. No, you're just fundamentally not like property. That's the wrong metaphor. If somebody's going to build a big mall and they're buying up all the property and there's one old farmer he doesn't want to sell, if that company buys all the land around him and he doesn't have rights to get to it because those people own the property he has to go across, then how's that fair market system like you're praising? You don't seem to understand statistics, you objectivists. To have the market dynamics that you praise, you need a statistical sample of sellers and buyers, right? Or at least approaching that. When you get down to one guy that needs access to his property and some other guy that owns all the access to his property, there isn't a market because there is no options. Do yourself a favor and explain to me. I mean, if a scientist wants to say water doesn't flow uphill on its own, doesn't flow uphill, and I go, well, look, an artesian well, it's bubbling up from underneath the ground, and they point out, well, that's just because it's higher up and there's pressure, and they would have to explain the mechanism by which they're saying this universal of, okay, generally water flows downhill, or to say more specifically, you have to input energy to move it uphill, or they would have to describe that mechanism by which that claim is true, or arguably true, or can be interpreted in a way that is true. And you never do that. You believe in property rights, so why can't somebody own the rights to the air? You also don't seem to get that a nation is just like any other group. We could set up our cooperative organization, our partnership rather, with whatever rules. You guys say you're forced by a point of a gun to pay taxes. Well, you're forced by the point of a gun to obey property right laws as well, right? In other words, no gun is ever pointed, but that's where it all leads to if you violate them. Somebody points a gun at you and takes you off to jail in both cases, right? Your ancestors, unless you're Native American, agreed to the rules of citizenship. When they took the oath, they knew following the laws of the land, including any taxation, was a part of that deal. All right, so you make all these false distinctions from your romantic notions, like Rand, that just have you in this la-la land where you figured out what good character is, what a strong character, what a go-getter is, and you want to build a system around that personality, and since they have good character, the system will have good character. Well, once again, this is not how it works. You can't judge an object and stuff the world with objects that have a certain essence and expect the essence to express itself, because there is no fucking thing as essence. There's relationships. You have to analyze the relationships between people, and then you start to realize that, hey, if I have you landlocked, then there's things besides guns to use to apply pressure. There's resource needs and desires and profitability and how people make a living for their family. Anyway, it's just ridiculous. You need to think it through more. I mean, that's why so many Randians are young, because they just don't know. They don't have experience in the real business world to know. But there's nothing more pitiful than an old Randian, because I just can't imagine how they've isolated themselves from the world to believe this fantasy land notion of how things work or can work, how they don't look at history or any of the situations, and they make arbitrary distinctions fundamental when they're simply arbitrary. If you believe in the right to property and nothing else, then yes, of course, somebody can get a monopoly on some kind of property that other people need, unless you're going to make some kind of distinction between things like the atmosphere and property. And you're going to say some things can't be thought of as property. We need other models for those things. You just can't figure that out, and I pity that, and I'm also annoyed by it.